missing someone.
Hey, this is Bond Diesel, and I am welcoming new and old to the EchoCast, a podcast where I, and hopefully other people, will talk about the Division 2, and what else we can get into. So, what's been going on with myself? We are getting ready. This is recording this on July 1st. We'll be doing a giveaway later this month for a limited edition Division 2 art print that was only sold at E3 2018. I purchased 2 of them, obviously one for myself and one to give away. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a nice giveaway. And keep an eye out for details. I'm expecting it to probably do it in the second half of the month. I have a new edition of Specialization Speculation going live on my YouTube today. This one is a South African gun that I think will be really cool. Has some neat utility, similar to the grenade launcher, but different. So be sure to check that out over on my YouTube. It's just Bond Diesel. Should be the first thing that pops up if you search for it. When it comes to streaming, I recently upgraded my PC with a 1070 Ti. I have a i7 6700 and 16 gigs of RAM, so at this point things are running pretty smooth with everything but PUBG, go figure. I suspect most of you guys don't really care to see PUBG anyways, so I'll keep that to my personal playtime. But Siege, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 5 soon. Basically any other game on PC you'd like to see, I'm open to suggestion. I will probably not be doing the Division, maybe Survival. I just don't have it. I don't have the heart to refarm everything. And after fiddling around for a few hours, I just not sure. I don't like the keyboard and mouse, but I refuse to use a controller on PC. But I'll get used to it, especially for Division 2, which I plan on splitting time probably 50-50. So that's what's going on with me. Stay of the game recap. No stay of the game. It looks like there's a pretty good chance that this coming week there will be one, but nothing confirmed yet, so keep an eye out. One thing to keep in mind as well is a huge chunk of the people that we deal with and the people that we don't, that are on the Division, development wise, will be taking their summer vacation soon. I believe they're 2 to 3 weeks, so don't be surprised if information is somewhat limited over the next month. Rolling into Division news, I've been trying to post some little clips from the E3 streams I've rewatched. I threw up one about the Hive and how it's the replacement for the support station. We didn't really get exact details on what that means specifically, but what I'm interpreting is that I think we need to look at the skills, even the ones we've seen so far, and the ones that we've gotten vague confirmation of because of talents on gear in the videos, is that just because the Hive can attack weak points doesn't mean it's not going to have significant utility. It looks like the mods to the skills, where currently it just makes the skill that we use just a little bit stronger, like a damage percentage boost for sticky bombs, or duration of life on a turret. To me, it sure looks like that the mods in the upcoming game, Division 2, are going to be significant changes to the way that the the items work entirely. A defensive turret, offensive turret, maybe a turret that distributes healing, maybe a turret that spots enemy players and gives you a damage boost against them. I don't know. Same with drones, same with this hive. The hive may have little nanobots that pop out and heal you, give you armor. Maybe take out projectiles. I believe that was what the defensive drone in one of the videos does. It literally shoots bullets out of the air, but it can't defend itself. So if the enemy targets it, they can take it out and business is normal. But if they don't, it can provide almost a shield. And then you gotta think of the other skills that we may or may not have. What kind of utility can the shield have? I think that stuff's gonna be really interesting to get into. Over on Twitter, Terry Spear proposed the question very bravely of what do you want the DZ to be? What are your ideas? I would call this move going somewhat rogue, and I think it's great. There's always going to be a mixed bag when someone with that notoriety asks the general public for ideas. There's going to be some saltiness. There's going to be some big dreaming going on in there, but you're also going to find some good ideas. And even if it's stuff that doesn't get implemented, it's still a good way to kind of put your finger on the pulse of the community. One thing I've learned though is that just because the community wants something doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they need. But that's a whole different conversation. Maybe we'll have it another time. In August, we'll have Gamescon, and I think there's some assumption that we'll get some new information about Division 2 then. Hopefully, maybe DZ PvP information. And I say those in two different things. We'll go more into that here in a moment with the speculation piece. But I think most people are hoping that we maybe get some new trailers, some new footage, some new information. I'd be pretty bummed if Gamescon is just all of the exact same info that we got at E3. But it's possible. We don't know. We've been assured nothing. So at some point, I think we should be hopeful. But I also think that means that you can't really be too mad if we don't get what we want. So anyone who's been around the community long enough knows that that doesn't mean too much. But we'll see. Okay, so speculation piece for Division 2, this podcast. Inspired by Terry Spears' question, I figured we'd have our first conversation about the DZ. And for me, I think it's important to clarify that the DZ is not just a PvP zone. It was never meant to be. It isn't. Even though you'll find that there's a large number of people, but I would still manage to guess a minority who feel that way. The DZ should be a PvE VP zone where you can go in and fight against enemy AI, NPCs, with the risk of someone who is real trying to attack you with the goal of stealing your stuff. And what I think is interesting and kind of gets lost a little bit in the current conversation is that because of the way that loot was distributed through the life of this game, because of just how the game has developed and moved along, that's not why people are in the dark zone fighting other players. I often see rogues never even pick up the loot unless it's something like really interesting. But honestly, so much of the player base doesn't need loot at this point that it's just it's a gank zone, and I don't say that in a bad way necessarily, but what's interesting for me is I really try to dive into parts of the community that I don't typically associate with. And I do it very quietly. I watch streams, I watch videos of people who I don't like personally, that aren't my thing. But I think it's really important to still have a look at the community, even if it's not the one I'm part of, because I think it's important to see the other side, whether I like it or not. And like getting on Twitch and watching a stream of someone who with their buddies goes around and goes manhunt over and over again. Like I can see where it's fun. It's interesting watching the communication of people who are good at it. I still think it kind of reinforces how terrible the PvP mechanics in this game are in its current state in a lot of ways. But to me, it's when I watch this, I'm sitting there just thinking, like, is this fun? Like, it seems like these people are enjoying this experience, but like, is this really like satisfying gameplay? Is this, you know, there's no goal. The goal is just to kill people, which is fine. But even today, there's other games you can play to kill other players with a goal or with some sense of progression. And I think the DZ in Division 2 needs to feel less like the place for PvP and the place to go do stuff with the possibility of PvP. So to actually dive in on my points is, you know, what will the DZ be? I don't think it'll be what we currently have. And I think there's two distinct possibilities of what we'll see. So I think one of the possibilities is that the DZ in Division 2 will be some kind of evolution of the Division 1. I don't know if that means it will be a mix of Rogue 1.0 and 2.0. I don't know if it'll be a true step in a new direction with like a Rogue 3.0 system. I personally think that there's a lot of really good in the Rogue 2.0. As someone who is primarily a PvE player, I think I've attained a reputation of maybe not being able to comment or whatever on PvP or DZ, which is just stupid. Every other game I play PvP because the other games I play feel like they have some balance in PvP, and it feels fun. You watch me play Siege, watch me play PUBG, watch me play Battlefield 4. Those games have nice, satisfying PvP. It doesn't mean you're always gonna win, but it does mean that, you know, you're rewarded for doing things well. Where in the Division PvP, that's sort of true, but there's a lot that isn't. And you know, if you're not jumping into the gross meta of running striker, chicken dancing, you know, using a lot of cheesy kind of lame tactics, you're not gonna be successful. Watch someone take cover in PvP. They're dead. They died before they even fired a round, you know. I really think the Division 2, I really hope it's like a Rogue 3.0. I hope it's an evolution. Even as, you know, being a PvE person myself, I actually kind of miss the ability to not have to flag yourself rogue. That never bothered me, because if you were paying attention, you could typically tell who was about to go off on you, right? The thing that Rogue 2.0 does that I like, though, is that it gets rid of this crappy system where rogues would either intentionally or unintentionally use body blockers, players who were not in their group, but that would shield them to turn people who were fighting the rogues rogue. And the reason that was so awful was that, whether it was purposeful or not, which it absolutely was purposeful at times, you could tell, it was awful because what would happen is that 4 rogues would go rogue, a group of 4. They would start fighting other agents. And what would happen is that these agents, one by one, would start going rogue themselves because of stray bullets hitting people that they weren't supposed to hit, not hitting rogues, and hitting other friendlies, causing them to go rogue. And what was just so frustrating when the Rogue 2.0 stuff was going on is that there were so many people saying, "Well, get good, you know, aim better," and like, come on, play this game for 20 minutes, and and tell me that it's that simple. It's just not, especially on console, but even on PC, it's just a bad system, especially because the rogues had no downside. For me, my perspective was that one of the biggest triggering parts of Rogue 2.0 was that it so drastically moved the advantage from the rogues to the non-rogues. And maybe too far. Maybe it swayed too far. But it was interesting that before Rogue 2.0, rogues had such an advantage when it came to, you know, being not, the rogues literally didn't have to care about where they were firing. Honestly, in hindsight, something I would have liked to see, that rather than removing friendly fire necessarily between non-rogue agents, was to just enable friendly fire on everyone, including rogues within their own groups. Because that was, to me, one of the biggest changes in power and balance, was that before, rogues could do no damage to each other, so they didn't have to worry about it. They could just fire wildly. And after Rogue 2.0, now everyone could do that. And before, when it was only 4 people who could do it against a crowd of 8, it was the advantage of those 4. But when the crowd of 8 can do the same thing now, it turns too far to the advantage of the larger group, typically hunting the rogues, right? So, you know, that's one of the mechanics that I would really like to see worked on. The thing is at the end of the day, I don't know the answer. I don't know how to fix that, because I don't want non-rogues to be able to trigger rogues so easily accidentally. And the statement of get good, stop shooting the wrong people, is just unrealistic for this type of game. But I also don't want the non-rogues to have the advantage the way that they do at this point. There's been other suggestions, like the fact that non-rogues can heal each other, whether they're in a group or not. That's something that's always kind of annoyed me. I still don't think the grenade spam is as bad as everyone predicted it would be in the moderate amount of PvP I've done since 1.8 came out. The one big thing that I think would be really important for Division 2, though, is to make the DZ not the primary option for PvP. Because in Division 1 we have modes like Last Stand and Skirmish that, especially Skirmish, should be the go-to PvP mode for people who want to be quote-unquote competitive. Unfortunately, it's not. Whether it's because of the scaling of the gear, because they use the gear standardization, which I don't think is a bad thing. The problem is that it's not standardized to the level of gear that we have anymore. It's stuck in 1.6 or 1.7, you know, where it's not what we need anymore. It's too low, you know. People have figured out ways to make their classy gear work in those modes, but it still just doesn't feel right, because it's stuck on the old gear limits, the gear that almost no one uses anymore, the gear that maxes out at 1272. So for Division 2, I think the best way to make the DZ better in one way is to give other and better options for actual PvP. Really, some evolution of Skirmish would be amazing, in my opinion, where it's just 4-on-4, heads up, your crew versus the other crews. Being able to private matchmake with no rewards would be really nice. People could run some really great tournaments with that kind of a system. There's a lot to it that could be great, and could really improve the experience entirely, I think. But it's gonna take, you know, that evolution, that work to make that happen. The other idea I have that we may see out of Division, and I think it's a really long shot, but I am curious, is that when Terry Spear posted his tweet asking for people's thoughts on the DZ, he called it a dark zone experience. Now, I think that's perfectly reasonable to just assume he means the time you spend in the dark zone. What do you want out of it? You know, what do you want the purpose in there to be? What you could perceive from that, though, is what if they treat the DZ as a different type of beast? So what if they treat it as a different game mode, where right now we just walk from the LZ into the DZ, and for the most part it's the same, just with a few new mechanics with PvP. But what if the Dark Zone is a whole new experience? What if it's like an instance, the way that survival is right now? What if you go into the DZ and there is a whole different way of like treating the goals of going there and things like that? I've done a whole video on YouTube talking about how I would like if the DZ was a mix of survival and Escape from Tarkov, where it was like a weekly or monthly based instance where you would go in, collect gear, collect resources. I think that there's going to be something in the new game that's going to make collecting resources much more important, whether or not it's helping create settlements or helping keep control of various parts of the LZ, or something. I don't know, but it sure seems like there's going to be, I have a feeling there's going to be an emphasis on resources. So maybe the whole goal of the DZ in Division 2 will be collecting resources, and you know, maybe you have to steal those resources from others, or maybe you have that option, but that you don't have to. And that in some instance DZ mode, you get your gear, you get loaded up, but if you decide to fight someone, or if someone fights you, there's a possibility of losing that gear and having to start over in that instance. Or you can just get loaded up in that whole instance, you dominate everyone, but then the new season starts. It's a long shot. I don't think that's going to be a thing, but I've always thought that was interesting, the whole Escape from Tarkov system of only, you know, of possibly losing everything you have, not just what's in your bag, but what's on your body. The last idea I've seen thrown around a little bit is that there's people who want the whole map to just be a big dark zone, where you could be playing just a regular mission or just walking around Washington and just get jumped on by someone instantly. I think that's dumb. And that's, I don't think the people who want that are dumb, but I think that idea is just, it would like diminish the point of the DZ to me. And I just don't, I think that when you hear those kind of suggestions, you find that there's people who, you know, I've seen lots of polls. They're all unofficial, obviously. It's, we don't know the actual player numbers and stuff like that. But I've seen a lot of talk of people that it sure seems like, from what I've seen, that roughly 15 to 25% of the people who play the Division play it for PvP or for that competitive nature, but that the vast majority does not. So when you see ideas, when you see people say stuff, no matter which group you consider yourself part of, I think we have to remember that, at least in my opinion, they need to take care of the PvE people first, because that's what the majority of the people play. And I often see people say, well, this game doesn't have enough for PvE players to do. Why would people do that? One, I still do it. I enjoy running the same missions I've run 1,000 times. I don't really know why. I just do. It's comfortable. I enjoy doing it a little bit different ways. I enjoy doing it faster. I enjoy being more efficient. I just enjoy the mechanic of you know, seeing how powerful my build is, or putting that sticky bomb on that big boss and seeing if I can one-shot them. You know, there is stuff there for people who enjoy that. And I think that the biggest argument for that is maybe they should focus on giving us way more stuff for PvE people to do, especially considering that it seems to be the significant majority of players. That said, I've said this a million times, just because that's the case doesn't mean that I don't think that the PvP in the division or Division 2 should be satisfying and fun. I don't think it will ever be competitive in the sense of like Siege, where you can have tournaments, true tournaments, esports, stuff like that. I don't think the division needs to be that. At the same time, what do I know? So that's that. We're going to talk about the DZ and PvP a lot more over the next 7-8 months. I'm positive. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts. So if you are still listening at this point, definitely, drop me something on Twitter, drop me something on YouTube, whatever you prefer. Let me know what you think. This is obviously a interesting discussion. No one's really right or wrong, even though I would say some people are wrong about their opinions. In reality, they aren't. That's my opinion does not trump others' opinions, though I may think so. I did, instead of doing a game update, I threw out a question on Twitter of opening myself up to questions. Mostly, only one person responded, and I believe it was Deep Fried Dave. If I'm wrong, I'm super sorry. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. But the questions were, or was it? I'll figure it out. I'll sound dumb right now, but where will the base of operations be on Washington DC map? I suspect that we won't have one big central location. I suspect that it's going to be it's going to be broken up in some way, or that like the safe houses that we have now will each act as like little bases of operation. I could be wrong. There may be some big home base that we get to use, but I suspect there's going to be an emphasis on using the safe houses and having to defend those safe houses to keep the utility that they provide. That may be too much for some players. Maybe that isn't a great design, but I don't really think that may be what we need, but I suspect it's going to be different. That's what I have to say about that. Any hints as to what you'll get in Division 2 for earning shields in Division 1? I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it says down at the bottom of the shield tab what you're getting, or at least some vague reference. I believe those little charms that hang off of the backpacks will be part of the unlocks. I believe there's weapon skins, and I believe there's arm patches. I think there's like an I Love New York arm patch that you'll be able to have in Division 2 for the shields. But I believe if you go down to the bottom of the shield tab and go across the different level of shields that you get, I think it's like 3 something something and then all of them. I would check that out, because I believe that answers your question. And has Terry Spear ever been to the Day of the Dead festival in Mexico City? I don't know, but I feel like he would be on Skull Overload if he was, or if he did go. And the last question is, what actually makes a burrito good? Well, so the burrito has to start with good meat and a good tortilla, right? You gotta have some flavorful but not overpowering rice. For me personally, you need to have lots of cheese. You need real cheese, shredded cheese, like from the block, not any store-bought crap. You need to have some good pico de gallo, because it's friggin' amazing. Maybe a little different type of really hot sauce to give it a little kick. I love me some corn salsa from Chipotle. Amazing. And then for me, what you really have to have is the last like 4 bites have to be amazing. So when you have that burrito and you've eaten it all the way down to the stump, all that stuff has run down to the bottom. Those last like 4 bites, they just have to be heaven. That comes from all the good ingredients that you already put in the burrito. So that is what actually makes a burrito good. I want to encourage people, as we wrap up here, to ask me questions for the EchoCast. I'll try to, a couple times a week, post up, give people an opportunity to directly ask. You can DM me, you can drop messages on YouTube and stuff like that. I'm going to kind of divert I thought about making an EchoCast Twitter account, but honestly, I think that would just be spreading myself a bit too thin. So if you don't know already, I have a Division 2 Game Hub account on Twitter that's at the Division Game 2 Hub. Go figure. And I'm going to make that kind of the home of the EchoCast and try to start pushing that a bit more. We got a nice little following there. I think we're almost at 1,300 followers. We're going to keep growing that as we get closer to the game. I want that to be, you know, I only post Division 2 questions and polls and news and retweets and all that. Only Division 2 there. On my own personal account, Bond Diesel, I'm a little more varied. Maybe some personal stuff, maybe stuff with other games. I try to mix it up a bit more on there. But check out at the Division Game 2 Hub if you want just pure Division 2 information or speculation or whatever. For myself, you can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch as Bond Diesel. You can find me on Instagram as BondDiesel_Twitch. I've been trying to be a lot more active on Instagram. I think that's a good medium for some of my screenshots and stuff like that. I do only have 2 missions left of the Division Shots project, and I'm probably going to shelf that one until Division 2 comes out, but we'll be bringing it back with a vengeance. Division Shots for me, what I was doing, actually started on August 1st. So I might do some kind of giveaway or something to celebrate that project that really kind of got me going. That said, that's pretty much all I had for this week. This is Bond Diesel, and until next time.